Welcome back to the next part of the Hack and Slash Tutorial series. In this video, we're going to work on executions. So if the enemy's health is low enough, which I set it pretty high, so 60% I think. So if the health is around 60, we can execute based on range. So if the player's in range, it'll light up. If we're out of range, it'll, and so we can execute enemies. Boom, plays it so. We cannot execute enemies in air. If you want air executions, you're more than welcome to implement it yourself, but I won't be implementing that as it does require and cause a lot of problems. So we can still cancel our attacks to execute. I think that's a cool mechanic. So if we're attacking and then we see an execution, we can just spam it and it'll just cancel. And so yeah, everything seems to be working. We did also fix a bit of some issues with the combo system, specifically our starter and extender attacks, as they're trying to be called, but we don't want them to be called. So if you guys want the project file, join me on Patreon. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to the next part of the Hack and Slash Tutorial series. In the last video, we worked on the UI system. We have health bars, a HUD for a player, lock-on icon that you just saw earlier. And in this video, we're going to start working on the executions. So finishers, death blows, whatever you want to call them. And this is pretty much the second to last video before we start covering new content with AIs and spawners and behavior trees and all that good stuff. So let's wrap this stuff up and let's start running into the AIs once that comes along. So let's start with the player and let's handle all the input for there. Now you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can either have your light attack input be the finisher as well, but typically it's like a separate input. So what I'm going to do is make another event graph and call it finisher EG. What we're going to do is we're going to make another input action for this. So let's head over to our input actions. We can just duplicate one of them, call it IA finisher. Should be pressed. Perfect. Let's head over to our mappings, add a new input, scroll it down, search for finisher, and I'm going to bind it to F. Bind it to whatever key you want. If you're going to use like your light attacks or heavy attacks, just you don't need to make an input. So here we're going to get our finisher input action, and on triggered we're going to do a couple of things. First things first, we need to check that we are targeting, so is targeting, and our target actor is valid. So if both are true, then we could possibly execute, but of course we're going to need to check for health. So if these two are true, what we're going to need to do is grab our target actor and we're going to cast. So here we're going to cast to BP base enemy, and here we're going to grab our get current health, and what we're going to do here is we're also going to grab a new variable, but let's make that first. And so what this new variable is going to do, it's going to control what health percentage or what health the enemy should be at before the player should be able to execute. Typically you should have this in your player character and then have like an interface to broadcast it or delegate to broadcast it to your other actors to check whether or not they can be executed. But this is just going to be a very simple way of showing you how to do executions. So make a new variable, call it execution health. Let's make this a float, and the player should execute at 20 health. If the enemy has 20 or less health, player should be able to execute. Now here we're also going to grab the new variable, which is execution health, and we're going to check if our current health is less than or equal to our execution health. If it is, then we can execute. But we also need one more thing. We need check distance. So we want to get distance to, and then this one would be our target actor. So let's grab target actor, and let's make this one be less than or equal to, and this one is, let's make a variable, call it execution distance, and distance And let's plug this in. So if those are both true, we are in range and the enemy can be executed based on health. We perform all our functionality here. So let's make a new event graph for players for our enemy as well, called execution, e.g. Here we're going to we should call a custom function. Let's call it custom event. Call it on executed. Where what we do want though is an integer. Call it index. And let's make this a integer. Now what we're gonna do here is we want to get a execution animation and then pass the index to our enemy as well. So what we're gonna do is make this execution montages, make this an anim montage, and make this an array. So you can get a random. Typically this works, but I found that this does not work at all. This index value never is correct. Passing it to the function that we made here will never work. Or it does work, but it's very inconsistent. So what we're gonna do is grab the length, subtract it by 1. So -1. And then we're going to get random integer. So random integer from range, in range. So random integer in range. The minimum will be 0. The length would be our length -1. And then we need to promote this to execution index. Now let's clean up this a little bit. This one will be in our damage. So damage. Execution hit actors. Okay, we can keep all that out here. Execution index. Okay. And then we could pass this to our enemy as long as the array for our execution is the same. So if we play the first execution of the index, then the first index of the target execution should be the same, or should be the corresponding animation. So let's make the animations first. So what we're going to do is have store animations, execution 1. So let's select both of them and create a montage, both. For this one, call it am_execute_1. This one, am_execute_2. Make sure root motion is enabled for both. We are going to use motion warping. If my skills or my experience with motion warping still exist in my mind, I'll try to implement motion warping, but if not, we'll have to make do with what we have. But let's compile this and let's add our 2 animations. So it's going to be execute exa1 and exa2. Boom. Now what we're going to do is grab a montage and get copy, and the index will be this. And then we want to play it. So I want to set let's see, for a dodge, I want to see if we have iframes for our dodge. Because if we do, we should just have the iframes. We could either set the iframes when we play the animation, or we set the iframes the second we call the code. But I want to see first. So dash. Yeah, so we do have iframes, so we don't need that. So we don't need to call anything there. So we can just play the montage. So let's play set state first. Set our state to that is a good question. What state should we be at? Could be an attack, but yeah, you know what, let's keep it at attack. I don't think we have issues. Something tells me we might, but let's just keep it at that. If we do, we can change it. For now, let's keep it at that. So let's play montage and let's play our animation. And then we want to get our enemy, so let's pull this all the way, pull a pin all the way over and called on executed. And then we also want to pass the information in here as well, the index. Now let's add motion warping. So let's motion warping. So we need to enable it. So let's start with edit, plugins, motion warping. There it is, motion warping beta. Yes. So now that I enabled it, I'm gonna have to reset the engine. So once it's back online, I'll continue with development. So motion warping is back and installed onto my engine. So let's add it. So in our player character, let's add motion warping. And I believe there's something called set target. Or set, what is it called? Or is it? I think it's add, right? Add. Oh, it's set. Target, set, tickable, pause, curve. Sorry, my motion warping skills are still bare minimum. I haven't played motion warping a whole lot, but it's still a really cool system. So I really want to use it. So let's try to see if we can figure this one out. Create, add asset. Should be around here somewhere. Implement interface. Okay, so I figured out it's called add and update or update warp target location rotation. That's it. So I want to do that before you get the animation plant. Our warp target name, make sure it's consistent. Let's just call it target. Target location will be the target actor's location. And then rotation, it's going to be a find, look at direction. So let's do that. Find, look at rotation. The start would be, let's move this out a little bit so we can make a bit of room. So actually this would actually be a make rotator. It is make rotator. So we only want to modify the Z value here. So Z in there. Let's move this all out and get some space here. Get over. Let's copy this, and this. Move it over a little bit. Okay, now we're gonna get actor. Get actor rotation. Let's split this. The roll and the pitch is gonna be the same. Start would be our own actor location, and the target would be the enemy location. There you go. So with that said, we need to add that notify for the motion warping to work. So let's head over to our animations. Let's get open our executions. First things first, let's add a enable iframes all the way through until right around here where we reset the state. So let's reset state. Reset state. Here, we also want to add the motion warping. Here, let's see, motion warping. It's gonna start very close. Let's see, do we want to constantly rotate? Let's just keep it around here. It's right around here. This could be a screw warp. Target name is gonna be target. And rotation type is gonna be, let's keep everything the same for now. And we just need to copy all of this stuff over to the next one. So enable iframes. Around here. Class 2. Reset state. Right after. And then we need the motion warping. Let's give it target. And then let's just set the values here. So right around here. Right before we jump, right around there. Okay. So that should do the trick for now. Now what we could do is actually try and test it. So let's do that. Let's set my damage to 80. Just so we can hit that range for that health. It's right around here. So we hit F. Oh, I forgot to set a distance. So right here in distance, maybe 500. Nah, that's far too far. It's 350. Okay, now if we hit him once. Okay, now if I hit F. Nice. So he does rotate and everything. Yeah, so let's see. How far is... Wow. 300 is quite far. So actually let's lower that to like 150, 100. Now you could actually spam this, so what we're gonna do is make sure we end target right at the end, just so it doesn't get spammed, because once we end target we won't be able to do any of this. Now another thing I want to do is set a variable, so let's make a new variable, call it B is executing. Once we end the target, we want to set this B is executing to true, and then we'll have a atom notify to clear it. But what this variable would do is disable our input for disable our targeting input. So just so when we're playing an execution, we should not be able to target a new enemy. So and boolean, and make sure B executing is not true as well. Now this should also be applied to the softlock. So let's head over to softlock, do the same thing. Perfect. Now let's get the camera to work. So let's make that finisher camera, whatever you want to call it. So let's open up our viewport, because it's going to be very important once we do this. So let's select our follow camera and let's add a child actor. Let's call this follow actor. And we're select our mesh and we're gonna add a camera. And then we're also gonna add a child as well. Actually, let's move the camera first. So let's grab our camera, let's move it. So let's set this rotation to 90. Move this up a little bit. Back. Set it to 0. Move it up. And then move it, angle it down a little bit. So that one. So right around here. See, that might be okay. Maybe move it back a little bit. A little bit higher up. Lower. If this want to work with me. Let's see, how will it look? Oh, regardless, that should be fine. What I want you to do is actually move this out. And just go like that, and let's just add a child actor here as well. Call this finisher child or actor. So what we're gonna do is, so once we play, we should still be in our normal camera. What we're gonna do is actually blend our camera. So what we're gonna do, set over to GG. Right before we play the animation, we want to set our camera mode. So let's move all of this over even further. I highly recommend compiling this into a function or something, but since all of these are pretty much very separate, we probably have like 3 functions just for execution. But it's on you, whatever you want to do. But let's get our player controller and set blend view target with blend. It's gonna be an ease in out exponential, speed 1, and blend in time will be 0.2. And the new blend target would be our follow camera, not follow, our finisher camera, which I just call camera, and then we get child. Get finisher actor. Child elements, hold on, maybe we just grab this. Does that work? Oh no, get child actor. There you go, that should be it. Okay, yeah, there you go. Which I don't think we could do this, right? Could we? Get child actor? Nope, no, so that should be right. So let's test this. Only one way to know if it works or not. Stop that, and then okay, so it did kind of work. Or is it kind of? Get child component. We need a child actor for sure. So let's see. Let me see if I figure this out. Child actor. Oh, okay. I think I found it. So here, I think we need to search for camera. And it'll be camera actor. I think that's it. Right? And then here, same thing. Camera actor. I think that is why. Okay, now let's give it a try. Okay. Okay, yeah, there you go. So it does work, but our settings are kind of weird. So let's see, in our template, let's go to camera component, script settings, focus viewpoint. There should be like a constraint. There it is, constraint aspect ratio. That should be false. Let's try again. Let's hit it one more. There you go. But we didn't really see much of a change. So let's see. Let's try moving this camera actor. There you go. Okay. Let's see. Let's rotate this back. Let's put this at 0, 0 again. Let's move this. Move our camera out of our mesh into a capsule component. Let's move this all the way over. Rotate by 90 degrees. Okay, so 0. Okay, sure. Let's move this up a little bit, just so it can match with our other camera. So this one, move up, over. Okay, that's fine. Select our child, and let's move it up, over, and down. I don't know why it likes to do that, but it just does. Okay, maybe that might help. Okay, let's see. Okay, no, that didn't do a whole lot. So it looks like I found the issue. It's because I plugged in the wrong child actor. It's supposed to be finisher camera. I had the follow actor on here, so now it does work. And so let's move this back to its original position. It's right around there. Now if we test it, boom. Now if we play the finisher, there you go. Now we should be able to still move this out of the camera, the character mesh. So if he does do some spinning attack, we don't really need to, you know, the camera doesn't spin around as well. So there you go. That should do the trick for now. Now we still need to return back to the original camera. So what we're gonna do is on executed. Okay, let's see. How do we want to do this? Let's see. So targeting, finishers. And another big thing is that there's some things we can still do with the is executing, but let's ignore that for now. See if we need it for something else. I'm pretty sure we do though. Let's reset camera here. What we're gonna do is set blend mode, but instead to finisher camera, we plug in our follow camera. And then we want to set is executing to false. Now what else? There is something else I wanted to use this is executing for. Cannot attack. We cannot take damage. Cannot target. Oh yeah, we should not be able to move our camera. So let's do that. So over to event graph. We shouldn't be able to move either, but since we're using remote motion, that shouldn't be an issue. That shouldn't be an issue either. This one is targeting. Make sure it's an AND boolean. Make sure we are also not executing as well. Yeah. Okay, so that should do the trick as well. Okay, move this out a little bit. All right, now let's make that anim notify. So let's head over to our blueprints. Anim notify. Let's create am underscore reset camera. Now let's reset notify. Let's delete this and call reset camera. Now let's open up our animation. So let's head over here. Execution montages. Open this up. I'm just gonna throw this iframes all the way to the end, and then let's make a new track, add the notifier, reset camera, and then it should be around here where we reset. just so we can give enough time for the reset, for the camera to complete reset before we reset the state. Same thing, let's pull that all the way over and do the same exact thing for this one. Same thing, right around here. So now let's test it. Should be working. Okay, so another thing in our finisher camera, want to disable constraint in our settings after setting the child class actor to camera. That way we shouldn't have an issue anymore. Yeah, so no more issues. Now our inputs are not, now my mouse still doesn't work. Why? Oh, that's because it's set to true. My bad, it should be set to false. Okay, here we go. Now it should work. So, play the execution. Now my mouse is back to normal. Play the execution. That still rotates with the character. Interesting. Oh, no biggie. No big deal. Here, you might want to ease out. So blend exponential, let's put that 0.8. And put this at like 0.5, 0.45, 2.4. We also might want to push that notify earlier. So right on here, let's push it just earlier a little bit. Check. Boom. Okay. No. Maybe 0.3. Keep the exponential at 1. Give that a try. Okay, that's okay. Let's see. Is there a better one? Linear. Try linear. Linear blend. No, linear blend is okay. Yeah, a linear blend is okay. So let's keep linear blend for now. Now another thing. Now let's start working on the enemy. So the player is pretty much all set to good. All set, good, and ready to go. Now we need to work on the enemy. So let's open our enemy. Same thing. Let's make a array of executions. Execution montages. So it would be in a montage. And then this will be a array. Now we're going to get, based on the index, we're going to set state. And this get state, set state. Why does that not show up? Set state to death, because we are going to be dead after this. And then we want to play montage. Play montage. Play montage. Now, similar with the enemy or with the player, we're going to set the motion warping thing. So let's see. We don't need this camera part. We don't need any of this math part, and we don't need any of these checks. So let's just grab this entire set of code and let's move it over. So right around here, right before we even do any of that, let's copy all of this and move it over. Okay, so let's plug this in here, and this in here. Target location, motion warping. Let's make a motion warping component. There you go. Put that down. The target name or the key will still be target. We're not going to change that. Okay, there we go. And then location will be get player character. So we're gonna get player character. We're gonna get actor location, and then we're gonna plug that in here for our target. And then here our start is ourself, and then our target will be our actor location as well. All right, perfect. Now another thing is once we are done, we should also perform death. So, or we should actually just rag, or like, we set our state to death. Let's see. What is perform death gets called? Let's see, perform death. References. It's right here, only on health. Okay. So we don't really set, all we need to do is set collision. So let's make a function here. Let's call this the function. So remote following, yeah, okay, yeah. Let's collapse the function, call it disable collisions. Because we're going to need this function in our execution here as well. So once we play animation, we don't want to disable collisions just yet. We want to wait until like the very end and then we disable it. So let's keep it at that. Now let's make the animation montage real quick. Assets, animations, executions, shooting target. So these two. Create then a montage. AL underscore enemy execute 1. AL underscore enemy execute 2. Make sure motion is enabled. Now open up with this. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make another section called loop. And we're gonna have loop through loop. Just gonna do that right here. We're gonna call motion warping. So let's grab motion warping, and then it should play for pretty much the entire time. It's right around here. Once we hit the ground here, it should be good. Motion warping, target to target. Let's copy this over to our next one. Paste that right around here, and then we make another section loop. Make it loop. There you go. Now what are we gonna do? Let's see. Okay, now we also need a custom event here. So let's make a custom event for our enemy. Now notifies am underscore disable collisions. And so we're just gonna call that disable collision function. So disable collision. And then we can head over to our animations. Right before we start looping, we want to call it. So right here, disable collisions around here. You don't want to do it inside here, or else the notifier will get constantly called, and we don't need that. Just need to call once and we're good. Okay, so now let's add the montages, and that should be good enough, I think. Exa, and then exa. Boom. Okay, now let's play. Will be attacked. Finisher. Ooh, I did not like that, not one bit. Okay, that was okay. What I actually might want to do, probably not have remotion, because I feel like both characters are trying to push against each other, and one's gonna fall off. So what we're gonna do instead, okay, yeah. So what we're gonna do instead is we're just gonna set the active rotation. So we're gonna delete this. Just gonna set the active rotation. So set active rotations. We also want to set location as well, and then have it to so let's rotate first, and then we set location, active location, and then we want to set it. We want to sweep, set it through here, and then boom. That should be good. Now, and if we execute from behind, boom. Okay, so the enemy does. Yeah, we can't target the enemy. Enemy's dead. No collisions. Okay, now let's try to do something like attack it, and then try to execute and see if we have any issues. So let's damage, and set this to like 10. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna keep damage this thing. Hopefully, let's make a fire. That was way too much damage. Okay, maybe we're doing way too much damage and I'm not really sure when we can even execute some damage. So instead, let's just make the stats, the base enemy execution health, let's make it like 50 or 60, just so I know that if it hits 50% health, we can execute, just for testing purposes. So if we have the attacks, help. Okay, so that is interesting. So we kind of get too far away, so when we're doing regular combos, we kind of get too far away, can't really perform our execution. So instead, let's bump this up to like 250 or just 200. Bump this up 200. So once we hit like 50% HP, boom. So all our attacks are resetted. Now another thing is, what happens if we try doing it in the air? So we can still do it in the air, and that looks very weird. So what we can also do is have a checked to make sure we cannot do it in the air. So we're gonna do a branch is falling, is falling, not, and not flying, is flying, not. So we are not flying and we are not falling. Then we should be able to execute. So that solves the execution in the air stuff. If you want execution in the air, feel free to implement it. I'm going to avoid doing so, as it's going to be quite complicated and you're going to get a lot more issues, especially if you want the player to like execute and get them back on the ground. It's quite complicated. So now the enemy cannot be executed in the air. We crash, we can still execute, perfect. All our variables are resetted. Now last thing I want to do is get that health bar to show that we can execute. So open our UI, execution health bar. Click on the text and let's make it a variable. Now here is the thing. Distance. Now since the distance in our player, we can either do two things. We either move the distance to our enemy, or we can just make a variable and make sure those values are always the same. I'm just gonna do that. It's quite simple, but typically you probably want to have a way to get the execution distance to the UI. We could just cast to the UI or to the player and then get the variable there, but that's not very good. So instead here, we're just going to make sure we have a distance check. So let's see. No, we actually need the tick here actually. So let's make the tick, event tick. So here is actually a bit of an issue. Actually, we're gonna need the player character anyway, so let's get player character. First things first, branch. Check if this is valid. It is valid. If it is valid, we want to check the health, so get current health. And then get current, get execution. Get health. Okay, execution health, make sure this is less than or equal to the execution health. Then plug this in, move this out. We're gonna get the player. Actually, we need an boolean here, so boolean. Distance check, so we only get distance 2. Get distance 2. Get distance 2. Target would be our character. And then the target should be the owner, and then the other actor should be the target, which is the player. This one should be less than or equal to 200. Plug this in. If it is true, I want to do a couple of things. First things first. Or we can actually just cast to VP, and then we can just switch this to pure cast, as we know that the player would always be this class of this blueprint class. We can just get distance, get execution distance, and we can just plug this in. So this out a little bit. Now on the false pin or on the true pin, let's get our text. We want to set fill or set tint. what is it called? Hold on, let's see in the details what they call it. Color opacity. Color, set color and opacity. There you go. Here we're going to create or break slate brush, make slate brush, and then here tint, we're gonna make color slate specific color, we're gonna make it red all the way around on the true, and on the false same thing, but we're just going to set it to back to the default color. So let's copy the default color. So let's copy this. Actually, let's copy all of this node first. All of this first. Tiling, slate brush, tint, there it is. Move this over a little bit, and then it's paste, copy the color, copy, and then let's paste the color in here if I can. Sure, there's a simple way to do this. Boom. Okay, let's head over here and we select this. Boom. Nice. So that should do the trick. Oh, target should be our text block. There you go. Now that should do a trick. Now, let's get the enemy. Bam. Bam. We get it low enough. There you go. So it lights up red. If we move too far away, no longer lights up red. Let's get red. Execute. Maybe the distance is still pretty far, and we're kind of like crashing into the enemy, and it's causing it to fly all over the place. Let's do 150. I think we did 150 before, maybe not, but let's check just to make sure. Okay, okay, it's a bit better, but not any better. So let's set the actor rotation as well. So what we're gonna do is once we set the root motion, we want to set location to set actor rotation. We don't need to set location because I'm pretty sure the enemy will just move to the player. What we need to do is just face the character, or face the enemy at the very least. So let's do that. Hold on, that's super weird. I don't think I hit my heavy attack yet. That always plays. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So that's another small issue. Our stinger attack still has that, does not clear our variables. So let's open up this, head over to our stinger attack, make sure we clear everything. Search up index, combo starter, execution. Actually, we don't need that. And heavy attack. All of these need to be 0. And we should also do that with the launch, if you haven't already. All of these special attacks should clear everything, including that charge attack that I was talking about in the start of the video. Now, let's give it a try. Okay, so that's weird. So why are we trying to perform combo starter? It's very weird. We're trying to perform combo starter or something. Yeah, so we tried to perform combo starter, but it failed. So let's see, is there a fallback plan to that? Because once we play it, we should not even try to perform combo starter. So let's see, in our attack graph, let's check. So we have not heavy attack. So what we're going to do here, instead of just clearing the values, we should try to just reset all our heavy attacks. So let's see, just making sure that our heavy attacks and our functions don't have anything that we probably need. Reset combo. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so what we're going to do is just reset the heavy attack instead. I think that would be more efficient to do that, and then let's just reset heavy attack. For the light attack, I think clearing the index is good enough, but for everything else, probably call the function is better. What is that last one? Okay, now we shouldn't have that issue no more. So if we perform a heavy attack, charge, yep, so we don't have that issue anymore. Boom, executions are working just fine. Now let's try executing enemy at the maximum range. Okay, so we can execute. Okay, let's go from behind. So it's it'll really test it. Okay, boom. So it works. Okay, so execution, everything's working. We fixed a bit of bugs. We can't execute in the air. Everything seems to be working to me. Boom. Yeah, everything seems to be working. So that marks the end of this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.